Story 1. The basement door. I went to a small high school in upstate New York, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and rumors spread faster than the morning announcements. Our building was old, built in the early 1900s, and had a reputation for being haunted. I never believed in that kind of thing. Till my senior year. It started on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. The power went out right in the middle of last period. Most teachers dismissed class early, but since I was part of the student tech crew, the janitor, Mr. Collins, asked me to help reset the backup power in the basement. I had never been down there before. The entrance was a heavy metal door near the gym, half hidden behind a stack of old sports equipment. Mr. Collins handed me a flashlight and said, "Just don't wander too far left. That part of the basement's sealed off." I laughed it off, thinking he was just trying to mess with me. The stairs creaked with every step. The air got colder, damper. My flashlight beam danced across old lockers, broken desks, and boxes labeled with dates from decades ago. It smelled like mildew and rust. When I finally reached the power box, I reset the main switch. The hum of electricity returned through the walls. But before I could leave, I heard something, a faint knocking from behind a door across the room. I froze. It wasn't loud, just steady. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. I figured it was a pipe or something shifting. But when I shined my flashlight toward the sound, I saw the door. It was old, wooden, and chained shut with a padlock. On the top of it, written in faded red paint, were the words, "Do not open -1978. Something about that year made my stomach twist. I had no idea what it meant, but the knocking happened again. This time, it was louder. I tried to convince myself it was a rat or air pressure, but then came something else, a voice. It sounded like a girl whispering from behind the door. I couldn't make out the words, but it was definitely human. I froze, gripping my flashlight so tightly my knuckles hurt. Then, clear as day, I heard, "Help me." I dropped the flashlight. The beam flickered, spinning across the dusty floor before going dark. I backed away, fast, tripping over a chair. When I finally scrambled back upstairs, Mr. Collins was waiting at the door with a cigarette in his mouth. He looked at me, pale, shaking, and sighed. "You went near the old locker room door, didn't you?" I didn't even answer. He just nodded. He told me to seal it in 78. The girl went missing. Never found her. I never went back down there again. But sometimes, when I walked past that part of the gym, I could swear I still heard knocking, faint, patient, waiting. Story 2. The substitute. This happened during my sophomore year. Our English teacher, Mrs. Hall, went on maternity leave. The school brought in a substitute named Mr. Grayson. He was quiet, polite, and never raised his voice, but something about him always made me uncomfortable. Maybe it was his eyes. They were too still, like he didn't blink enough. He started teaching us in October. The weirdness began almost immediately. On the first day, he called everyone by name before attendance was ever taken. When we asked how he knew who we were, he smiled and said, "I've been here before," but none of us remembered him. The next few weeks, strange things started happening. Students' desks were found moved around when we came in each morning. Notes appeared on the whiteboard in perfect handwriting. Messages like "Dan T, stay after dark," and "He watches from the window." We assumed it was a prank, but the janitor swore no one had access to the classrooms at night. One afternoon, Mr. Grayson asked me to stay behind after class. He said he needed help sorting old test papers in the storage room next to the library. I didn't want to, but I couldn't really say no. The storage room was small, lined with metal cabinets and boxes stacked to the ceiling. So we sorted through them. He asked if I liked stories about ghosts. I shrugged and said, "Not really." He smiled softly, like that answer disappointed him. Then he said, "You know, this school has stories of its own." I waited, expecting a joke, but he continued, voice low and calm. "There was a teacher who worked here before me. Same room, same class. One day, he disappeared during a lockdown drill. They never found him, 'cause some say he never really left. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Okay, I tried to laugh, but then I noticed something on the shelf behind him sat a framed photo covered in dust. I stepped closer to wipe it clean. It was a class photo, my classroom. But the date on it was from 1999, and standing on the far right, smiling, was Mr. Grayson. I turned back to him, heart pounding. He was watching me, still smiling, same expression, same pose as in the photo. My hands went cold. I ran out of that room so fast, I nearly tripped over the doorframe. When I told the principal later, they said no one named Mr. Grayson was on the substitute list. I checked again the next day. His name was gone from the sign-in sheet, too. That classroom stayed empty for a month after that. They said it was maintenance, but when they finally reopened it, the windows had been nailed shut from the inside. Story 3. The night security guard. My uncle used to work as a night security guard at a high school in Illinois. He told me this story once, after a few drinks, and swore it was true. He said it happened during the winter of 2004. The school was huge, with long hallways and old locker wings that hadn't been used in years. His shift was from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Just him, his flashlight, and the hum of the heaters. He said the nights were quiet, except one. It was a snowstorm night, and the cameras were glitching from the cold. Around 2 a.m., he saw movement on the monitor, a figure standing at the end of the east hallway. He thought maybe it was a teacher who'd stayed late, so he radioed in, no response. When he zoomed the camera, he noticed the figure was a girl, long hair, wearing what looked like an old-school uniform. But what unsettled him most was that she wasn't moving. She was just standing there, facing the wall. He went to check it out in person. The hall was freezing cold, the kind of chill that cuts through your jacket. The motion sensor lights flickered on one by one as he walked. When he reached the end of the hall, she was gone. No footprints, nothing. He thought maybe the cameras were glitching again. But when he got back to the security office, the monitor showed something that made his heart stop. The girl was now standing behind him in the camera feed, the same hallway he had just left. He turned around instantly. The hallway behind him was empty. But then, from the intercom system, a voice whispered, "Don't turn off the lights again." He said he ran out of the building that night and refused to finish his shift. When the school reviewed the tapes later, the footage from 2 a.m. to 2:15 was corrupted. Every other camera worked fine, except the one from that hallway. A few months later, one of the janitors told him something that still gives me chills. That east wing used to be where a student was found dead back in the 80s. A girl who stayed after school for detention and never made it home. Her name, Grace Whitmore. The last words she reportedly said before she died were written on the wall of her locker. "Don't turn off the lights again." Story 4. The classroom that should have been locked. It was around the middle of senior year when I started working late in the art room after school. Our final project deadline was near, and I usually stayed until 6 or 7 in the evening. The building would be almost empty, except for one janitor named Henry, who made his rounds before locking up. One Thursday night, I lost track of time completely. When I finally looked up, the clock said 8:47 p.m., and I realized everyone had already left. As I started packing my stuff, I heard something faint. A chair scraping across the floor. It came from the next classroom over. I froze, because that room was supposed to be locked. I stood still for a moment, waiting to hear it again, thinking maybe it was Henry finishing up. But the sound came again, followed by what sounded like soft footsteps. My body tensed up instantly. The lights in that room were off, yet I could see a faint shadow moving under the door. Curiosity got the better of me, so I quietly walked closer and peeked through the small glass window on the door. Inside, the room was dark, except for the dim red glow of the exit sign reflecting off the whiteboard. And in that red light, I saw someone or something standing near the teacher's desk. Looked like a student, maybe wearing the same kind of uniform we wore, but I couldn't make out their face. They were completely still, just standing there, facing the wall. I tried the handle out of instinct. It was locked, which made no sense, because whoever was in there hadn't come in through the main hallway. I whispered, "Hello?" but got no response. Instead, the figure slowly turned its head toward the door. The glass was too foggy to see details, but I swear their eyes reflected light for just a second, like an animal's. I stepped back quickly, heart pounding, and started walking away fast. That's when the lights above me flickered once, then went completely dark. I pulled out my phone flashlight and pointed it toward the hall. Everything was silent, too silent. I heard my own breathing echoing off the lockers. Then, from behind me, came the faint click of a door unlocking. I turned around, and the art room door, the one I'd just locked, was now slightly open. My mind screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. The hallway felt colder than before, and I caught a faint whisper, almost playful. "You shouldn't be here this late." That was enough for me. I bolted toward the exit, my footsteps echoing down the hall. As I passed the classroom again, I glanced at the window. It was empty now. The figure was gone. I didn't look back. Ran all the way to the parking lot, jumped into my car, and didn't even check if anyone else was around. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely get my keys in the ignition. The next morning, I went straight to the principal's office. I told him what I saw. He looked pale before I even finished. He said that classroom had been sealed off for years due to asbestos issues, though no one ever talked about it. I asked how someone could have been inside if the door was locked. He said quietly, "That room shouldn't even have a door anymore." I didn't believe him until I went back that afternoon. The hallway was open again, students walking past, laughing like nothing had ever happened. But when I reached the classroom, the wall was solid. The door I'd looked through the night before was gone, plastered over, no sign it had ever been there. My blood ran cold. That night, I checked the school's online archive out of curiosity. There was an article from 1995. A student named Alicia had gone missing after staying late to finish her art project. The last place anyone saw her was that same classroom. He said it had been permanently sealed after the police finished their investigation. I still have nightmares sometimes, and I'm standing in that hallway again, flashlight shaking in my hand. The door appears in front of me, just like before, old, wooden, slightly open, and I can hear the faint scrape of a chair moving inside, followed by that same whisper, "You shouldn't be here this late." Story 5. The locker that wouldn't stay closed when I was a freshman. I got assigned a locker in the oldest wing of our high school. Most students hated that hallway. It was colder than the rest. The lights flickered constantly, and the ceiling tiles were stained from leaks. My locker was at the very end, right next to a boarded-up door that led to the old science lab. It always smelled strange there, like chemicals and dust. The first week was fine, but by the second, weird things started happening. Every morning when I got to school, my locker door was slightly open. At first, I thought I hadn't closed it properly, so I made sure to slam it shut each time. Still, the next day, open again. My friends joked that someone was stealing my stuff, but nothing was ever missing. It was just moved. My notebook flipped to random pages. My pen left uncapped. It felt like someone had been going through my things and carefully putting them back. One Friday, I decided to stay behind after the last bell and catch whoever was doing it. I hid around the corner and waited. The hallway emptied slowly, the sound of lockers slamming echoing away. After 10 minutes, the school was silent. Then, right on cue, my locker creaked open all by itself. My heart skipped. I peeked around the corner. The door was swinging slowly, like someone invisible was standing there. I walked closer, whispering, "Who's there?" No answer. The temperature dropped so suddenly, my breath turned white. Then I heard something fall inside the locker, a small metal click. I leaned closer and saw a folded piece of paper lying on top of my books. It was yellowed and torn, with handwriting that looked decades old. It said, "Please, don't forget me. Locker 119. My number was 119. I felt my skin crawl. I looked around the hallway. Empty. No one could have left it there without me seeing. My hands were shaking as I stuffed the note in my pocket and shut the locker tight. The next morning, when I came back, the locker was wide open again, the lock hanging from the handle, broken clean off. Inside, everything was gone. Just one thing remained taped to the back wall, an old black and white photo. It showed a group of students standing by the lockers. The one closest to the camera was mine. Next to it stood a girl I didn't recognize, smiling faintly. Written in pen on the bottom corner was a name, Claire H. minus 1974. When I showed the photo to our history teacher, his face went pale. He said there was once a fire in the old science lab back in '74. A girl named Claire Henson had been trapped and killed. Her locker was destroyed in the fire, number 119, the same one I'd been assigned. He said it had been replaced years later, but no one ever used it for long. That weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about the note. I kept it on my desk, staring at the faded writing until late at night. Around 2 a.m., I heard something fall from my bookshelf. When I turned on the light, the note was gone. In its place lay the same burnt locker key from my school, melted around the edges. The number 119 faintly visible on the tag. I transferred lockers the next day. I didn't care if people thought I was crazy. The janitor moved me to a new one near the cafeteria. But sometimes, even now, when I pass that old wing, I can swear I hear a faint metallic click, like a locker door swinging open. And every once in a while, someone finds a new note written in old ink tucked inside their locker. Each one says the same thing. Please, don't forget me. That was 5 terrifying true high school horror stories that feel too real. Which story haunted you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.